Writer's Block, Episode 2. This is my dry erase board of passion. We're going to start today with a little bit of color theory. They say that red represents anger and love, which often go hand in hand. And they say that green represents learning. That reminds me, just a moment. Welcome to Writer's Block, Episode 2. So this is my dry erase board of emptiness for now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to talk you through the writing process a little bit. This is how I've been taught how to write, and I thought that it would be fun to kind of go through it. Not only will this help demonstrate how I plan to get back into writing myself, but it'll help any aspiring writers that might be out there. So typically in writing, you have 3 acts. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Act 1, we're going to use blue in color theory to represent peace and ocean or something. Act 2, represented by red. Then we've got Act 3. I'll try not to smell these in between takes. So this is very traditional. You have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3 in just about any story you write, at least to some degree. So what I've been taught primarily about writing is, and this mostly comes from Trey Parker, the writer of South Park, which I mentioned in the last video, if you were there. If not, you didn't miss much. So you have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And normally something takes place that will lead you into the next act. So here is what you do not want. And then, you don't want that. You don't want Act 1 happens, and then Act 2 happens, and then Act 3 happens. The end. If you have that, you don't have a story really. You just have a bunch of stuff that happens. Because this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. Then you just have, well, an episode of Teletubbies. So if your writing is really difficult and you're looking at what you just wrote and hating every minute of it, this is one approach you can take is, do you have just a bunch of and thens? If you feel like you have a bunch of and thens, then you might need to fix that, and we're going to talk about fixing that. So here's how you fix it. So between Acts 1 and 2, you don't want and then. So what you want to do is you want to get rid of that, and you want to change it to this. But. That's what you want. You want but. You set something up in Act 1, but something happens. Something goes wrong. There's a problem. Something changes the status quo. Things don't go quite as expected. The but allows you to get the ball rolling with conflict, because the conflict is where you get your juicy story from. So you can set things up in Act 1, and then you have your but. So for example, it doesn't even have to be anything crazy. It could just be something like Act 1, a little boy wants a dog. A little boy wants a dog, but something goes wrong. He wants the dog, but he can't afford it. But he's allergic. But his parents say no. Something like that. That creates conflict, and that is where you get the juicy problems that help make a story. So, if you're struggling, and your writing's not really going anywhere, that's one thing to start out with, is to get your act going, but then ask yourself, what about the but? Do I have a but, or do I have an and then? So then you go Act 2 to Act 3, and then, well, no, you don't want and then, once again. So instead of and then, here's what you want. Therefore. You want therefore. Therefore comes from the events of the but. It is the conclusion. It is the cause and effect. You set something up in Act 1, then you have your but, which means something went wrong, and then, no and then. You don't want and then. You want therefore. Something happens, but something happens that makes things go wrong. Therefore, the characters have to do something to resolve that, or it takes a left turn in some way. That is how you have a story. Characters do things, they have their normal lives, they have their status quo. Something changes that, therefore they have to do something to help reset things, or something new has to take place. So a little boy wants a dog, but he can't afford it. Therefore, he gets a job. Therefore, he steals. Therefore, he gets a cat. This isn't very exciting, but it's an example of how to create a story, because this is where all the drama comes from. And this is what good writing and good storytelling is the real world and problems. Because if not, then you just have some Paw Patrol crap where it's just something happens, and then they do some things, and then they do some things. Credits. Yay. But then you just kind of have 30 minutes of stuff. So, this is the approach that I've been taught primarily how to write. If you struggle with any writing, or if I find myself struggling with any of my writing, this is the template that I'm mostly going to try to come back to. You know, this writing is not going anywhere, or it's really difficult. So, do I have a but? I've set things up. Do I have a but? Have things gone wrong? Has there been a left turn? If I haven't done that, then I should try to add a but. If I do have my but, then how can I have my therefore? If I don't have a therefore, then add the therefore. So this is primarily how I'm going to be approaching my writing over the next couple of weeks. So if you want to write yourself, then this is what I recommend. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week for Writer's Block, Episode 3. Next week on Writer's Block, we're going to start today with a little bit of color theory. They say that red represents anger. That's better.